Hey lady, I know that as a business owner and as a leader, you want to make life better for the people you love and for those who need your help. But here's the thing. Business is a spiritual game. Leadership is a spiritual game. Empowerment is an inside job. And empires, well, they get built by careful design. And the problem is neither school nor family or even good old intuition teach you how to win the game. So twice a month or more on this podcast, we're teaching you how to become the architect of your business and how to develop that mindset that's necessary for you to execute on your dreams. Because ladies, mastery and mindset are the jet fuel you need to ignite your own on fire empire. Let's go.
Blah, blah, blah.
Okay, here we are. All right, so don't start that. All right.
All right.
Okay, welcome back to the Empire. Hey, so we are starting the first of a 3-part series under the heading, the Business Trinity. And the Business Trinity are some of the 3 most foundational things of your business that if you don't take care of them, it's going to be a real crapshoot if you succeed. And that's why we're going for it. So just a reminder, Jose, Business Trinity is what? It's culture, it's training, and it's hiring. And those 3 all mesh together. But today, you know what we're talking about today?
We're talking about culture. Clash.
Yeah.
Or culture really is what we're talking about.
Yeah. So culture, we're going to talk about, first of all, why is it so important? And we're going to talk about what culture is not. We're going to talk a little bit about what it is, what it truly is.
That's right.
And then we'll give some examples. This is something that we've been working on, I'd say really concentrated effort for the last 5 years or so in our business.
Yes.
And it's just getting more and more accelerated in how serious we are about culture, and the payoff is, wouldn't you say, it's pretty unbelievable.
It's something that's underrated when it comes to applying true culture at the company, and it's something that we practice obviously at our company every day, and we see the benefits from it.
It's huge. So this is I'd say, look, get this right and a lot of things are going to go right. So let's talk for just a second about culture. And in order to really understand how important this is, I want to ask a question. And Jose, maybe it'll help to think about some other places that you've worked. I can think of other places I've worked, but
some places I don't want to think about.
Yeah, well, sorry, today I'm going to take you through a little bit of a PTSD situation. But how's it going at work? You know, for our listeners, really, how is it going? Whether you're the owner or you're a leader in management, or maybe you're not any of those things. It's just, you know, a place you go to work and you haven't risen up to one of those leadership roles yet. How's it going at your place of business? Here's some questions. Is everyone excited to see each other every day? No? Are they excited? Are they talking great about the clients or your customers, whatever you have, clients or customers? Is everybody talking great about them? I mean, people are people, right? I mean, nobody's perfect. None of our customers or clients are going to be perfect. We're not perfect. But the question really is, how are we talking about them?
Well, and that's always a common, I guess you could say it's a common thread in a lot of companies where they talk down about the clients, the customers.
Yep.
And we get it, right? We get it. There are customers. We'll call customers. We like to call our customers clients, but it's not surprising that, you know, you're at work and you're in the daily grind and, you know, a customer comes up and, you know, is upset about something. It's tough. I get it to, you know, deal with it that way. Right.
And we're going to get into a little bit more about what that looks like in more specifics in a minute. But think about that. How are they being talked about? Is the team, are your colleagues and your coworkers, are they supportive of not only each other, but also the mission, why you're in business, why you're there, what it is you guys do and who you serve?
Not just a piece of paper on the wall, but the
mission. Exactly. Did you hear that, Huff? There's a dog under the table here.
I didn't hear it, but no problem.
Yeah, it'll be picked up.
I don't think the microphone's going to pick it up anyway.
All right, well, we'll see.
It'll
You
be
guys
fine.
can tell us if you can hear Lucy, my Akita, sitting under the desk here.
She's our studio pup.
Yes. She's gray and white. She kind of blends in with the decor.
And no, we're not putting her on the camera.
Well, maybe later. Anyway, so here's another question. Is everyone working with the same level of commitment and energy as they did on their first day of work? Ooh, that's an interesting one.
As time passes.
Yeah. So what's happening there? So if not, when you're answering these questions, if the answers aren't too great, there's not a lot of support, people don't care about the mission, there's not a lot of buy-in. Look, business leaders and owners, I'm going to tell you something. If these things, the positive things, aren't happening that we just mentioned and asked about, guess what? You're getting what you tolerate. Mm-hmm.
You get exactly what you tolerate.
So, because we've tolerated stuff in the... Right. Let's see the head shake. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We've tolerated a couple of things in the past. Yeah. It's been a steep learning curve.
But it's not uncommon. You folks out there know what we're talking about. And it's like, well, what do you mean tolerate? Well, we're going to tell you what it is that, you shouldn't tolerate. And you'd be surprised just how effective it would be. If you implement the fact that tolerating behavior, it's going to invite it as well.
Oh, for sure. And, some of the best, most good, kind-hearted people, wonderful leaders, they tolerate stuff. And there's a reason for it. Again, we'll get into that reason. And this is coming from personal experience. We've been there, done that. We're not preaching at you from lack of, or from a judgmental kind of point of view. All this stuff we've done. Oh, guilty as charged, right?
100%. Dozens of people.
Yeah, exactly. So today what we really want to get you to do is really start thinking about what kind of a culture you have right now, what you're tolerating if it's not what you want, right? Mm-hmm. And what you do want, and thinking about really what kind of culture would I love to have, and get really intentional about it, because it doesn't just happen. Culture is something we create. It is absolutely something we create, and it deserves your attention because, again, like I said earlier, it is central to your business. It's the linchpin. Here's the thing. It's super, super important, and here's why. Because when you have colleagues and employees, team members who are disinterested, unplugged, checked out from work, right? That level of disinterest directly affects the amount of value your business puts out to your customers and clients. Would you agree, Jose?
Oh, absolutely. I agree. And customers will notice. But when you see it every day and you're in the day-to-day, you don't realize, or I should say employees don't realize what they're putting out there.
Right. Oh, for sure. And it can creep up on you. That creep can just, before you know it, mm-hmm. it's slow. Sometimes it's almost like watching paint dry. You don't quite realize it's drying to a new color. But over time it gets there. But culture is the driver of value. And if you take a look and study the most successful businesses in the world mm-hmm. that are sustained over time, not a flash in the pan kind of thing, but long-term success, those are the businesses that typically put out the massive value to their clients and their customers. Not just the basic standard minimum level, but the massive value. And so if you show me a disinterested, unplugged in, unmotivated employee within your culture, then your culture is fostering it. I'm going to show you a company that's putting out very low value because it's tied. If you have a superstar team of high peak performers, which is what we hire for and what we're all about, and they're highly engaged,
right?
What happens to the value that you're able to add to your clients and your customers?
It's significant. I mean, how many companies have you worked with or you go to get a service of any sort? And let's talk about that. What kind of employees or would you like to work with? The ones that are energetic and really all about having a great culture where they work at, or the ones that are just not feeling it, not having the energy, and not really focused on a culture that fosters great customer service.
Yeah, it's just a job. I mean, here's an example I think of all the time, and they used to be the gold standard of customer service in the retail business. And I say used to be because things have really changed with the economy and outlet shops and online buying and all that. But Nordstrom, the wonderful department store. I don't know if they have Nordstroms on the East Coast, but anyway, here on the West Coast, Nordies, as we like to call them.
Nordstrom, still call it Nordies.
Yeah, I love Nordies. I still love Nordies. But Nordstrom, when I was, in elementary school, junior high, high school, college, they were the gold standard. And in fact, Greg, my husband, when we were in college, he worked for Nordstrom quite a bit and went through their training and all of this. And he made some pretty good money.
Did shoes, right?
He worked in men's shoes.
That's right.
Yeah. And you know what? He did a small stint on the buy in women's shoes and hated it because women would try on 50 pairs of shoes, buy 50 pairs of shoes, and then they'd come and return 49 of them. And so they were commission based. But men's shoes, he did great because men like to come in, get it over with. They buy their shoes, they're done. So anyway, but Nordstrom, it was more than the customer is always right. It was all about experience, all about customer satisfaction, and their team members were totally bought in. I mean, they were really excited because the company treated them well, and it was just the most delightful experience. And it was to the point where, Greg would tell me, he was up in West LA at one point, working in one of the West LA stores up in the Century City area. And he said, customers would come in that would bring stuff that they bought from other stores. Oh, wow. That Nordstrom didn't even sell. And Nordies would go, no problem. We'll take it back.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And they would take it back, and then they would take it back to the other store. So it just wasn't unbelievable. And so the value that Nordstrom added, now their prices weren't, bargain basement. Their sales were... Because another huff from the dog. Anyway, their sales, their prices weren't, if you're looking for a bargain, Nordy's was not it. Right?
Right.
They weren't crazy like, Neiman Marcus or Saks Fifth Avenue, anything like that, but they weren't a bargain. But people shopped there because they got great service, great experience, great attitudes, and they got massive value.
It was expected.
It was expected.
Right.
And I'm telling you right now, if they had employees that were checked out and their culture was garbage, I wouldn't be talking to you right now about Nordy's.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Back in the day. So anyway, so that's why culture is so, so important to start with, because it is the direct connection to adding massive value to the people you serve in your business. And that is what really leads to success. I really like this saying, and it's from Peter Drucker, if you don't know who he is, he is like one of the main gurus in the business world. Pick up his books, read his teachings. He's amazing. But a lot of times people focus on their businesses and strategy, marketing strategies, all their sales strategies, client acquisition, customer acquisition strategies. We're lawyers, and in our law practice, our strategies are very high in the way we deliver the services and strategizing in cases. All that is great and it's needed. But Peter Drucker says, culture eats strategy for lunch.
That's right.
Because you can have all the strategy in the world. If you don't have a great culture, what? We got garbage.
You have nothing. So it eats it for lunch and dinner, probably.
Right. And so we're going to talk for just a minute about what culture isn't. Okay, so let's talk for a second about what culture is not. Perks. Yeah.
I think when people join a company, especially today, you see that a lot. You see a lot of things like here, we're going to give you paid time off or more of it. We're going to give you free lunches. We're going to give you
An
Take your
on-site
pick.
chef. We're going to have an on-site chef.
Sushi for lunch.
Right. It reminds me of...
those are perks.
Yeah, those are perks. Mm-hmm. Remember the movie a while back about, it was like Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn?
Oh, Vince Vaughn.
And they were working for Google. Oh, The Intern.
The Intern.
Right?
Yeah. And talk about perks.
Yeah, and that was all about
nap rooms,
nap pods, game rooms, all the stuff. Perks do not drive culture. In fact, I will argue to you, they drive entitlement. Okay? Right. It's not that we don't want to be kind and generous to our employees, but that's not what culture is at all. And it's kind of interesting because when you look at like those articles out there that come out every year, the best places to work, the best environments to work in.
The top 100 best places to work in the United States.
Right. And so what are they normally talking about?
Well, they're normally talking about the perks.
The perks. And they're not really... it's not culture. Goodies and benefits.
And we're not talking about benefits,
health insurance,
daycare for children. I mean, that stuff, it definitely drives, interest in a company, and health benefits and all that. Right. But perks are very different, much more different.
Right. They're not culture. And I think that is what's misleading. Like when we see articles or news shows about these great places to work, don't confuse it with culture. Here's another thing that culture is not. Culture is not, or a good culture is not, where there's lack of accountability or lack of courage.
Yep, that's right.
Here's the thing. The assumption that more coddling equals happier employees, that is so off base. One of the books I like to recommend, and it's a book that we use in our businesses. We use it on the leadership team. Mm-hmm. Jose's on the executive team with us, and then our employees have a companion book, and it's a book. It's two books by Cy Wakeman. Mm-hmm. She's a wonderful HR specialist and psychologist, all wrapped into one. And the leadership version of her book is called Reality-Based Leadership. And then the book that we have all of our employees, is the first thing they get when they get hired on with the firm, is called the Reality-Based Rules of the Workplace. And one of the things Cy talks about in this book, and we'll link to it in the show notes because those books are fantastic, is she talks about studies where businesses were trying to figure out what makes a fulfilled, happy, driven employee, right? Mm-hmm. And they thought it was perks and nap rooms and all this kind of crazy stuff. But what they found out was that the happiest employees were the ones that had the highest level of personal accountability. Right. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Isn't that completely backwards from what most people think? It's where they've got a defined culture of how we treat each other and defined expectations, right? And they're held accountable, and they hold themselves personally accountable. Mm-hmm. So who thought that accountability, right, would be a huge driver?
Well, accountability equals
of happiness.
Right. It creates ownership. Mm-hmm. And so if you've ever been, obviously you're out there working for a company and you feel like you own your position or what you're doing on a daily basis, does that make you want to get out of bed every day? Probably, compared to, not having that sense of ownership. And that's what that means. Yep. Having that, it creates those, that I keep saying those bumper rails, for people to understand, okay, this is defined, and I can definitely take hold of it.
Right. So. And once either you as an employee are someone who takes ownership of your role, or you're a business owner, if you've got employees that take ownership, that's golden. That's golden. And I think most businesses these days are suffering from lack of employees that have that ownership piece of
Absolutely.
It. So the reason we said that culture is not lack of accountability and lack of courage, where's the courage piece come in? As the leader, as the owner. that courage piece comes in. And now we're going to tie this back to what we started at the beginning of this show, which is, oh my gosh, did I forget what it was already? No. The courage piece is you get what you tolerate.
Right.
Most of us tolerate a subpar culture because we don't have the courage as leaders to engage in regular accountability of ourselves and of our team members. You know, it's easier to let it slide. I got to tell on you for a minute, right?
Sure.
Kind of boast on you for a minute. So one of the things you are so good about, Jose's always saying around our place, we got to stop that nonsense right now. We got to, if there's something wrong going on, we got to go stop what we're doing and go address it right now. Don't let the, sun go down. We got to address it right now, which is absolutely right. It's because it's the courage piece to say, hey, somebody's doing something that's not cool. Mm-hmm. And, right. We, in our business, we like to assume that first it's a process problem before we go down the road that it's a people problem. But it might be a process problem and they don't realize it, or they haven't been given the right direction. And so it's on us as the leaders to exercise the courage and enter into that sometimes very difficult
conversation
space. Right.
And we're not saying that it's easy to do. It's never easy to go to one of your team member employees or even someone you manage and have that difficult conversation about coming into work late every day or not, fulfilling, your work on a daily basis. It's not easy, but it's about really taking care of it immediately. You're going to feel so much better.
Oh, yeah.
Doing that than waiting or, tiptoeing around the situation. That's even worse.
And I think what you're doing, Jose, when you're jumping right on that is most, really great employees, truly quality people that you hire, they want feedback.
They do. Absolutely.
And so they don't want feedback at the end of the year with coming in with Santa's list of all the things they've done wrong.
That's exactly
right. They want to be able to get better. Another resource that I want to turn you on to, and that we study a lot, and I'm right in the middle of this. If you don't know who Keith Cunningham is, Keith, I'm singing your praises. Keith is an unbelievable business leader. He's an advisor to CEOs across the country. He's got some great courses on explaining business, profit, and finance in plain English that every business owner and CEO can understand. But he's written a book called The Road Less Stupid. I love that.
That's a great title.
I love it. And, on this whole thing on accountability, here's what he says in The Road Less Stupid. He says, about perks and throwing benefits at people. That's analogous to saying more money can fix a broken marriage. More money might make it bearable, but it won't fix it. So just remember, happiness at work, really what we're saying here is that it equals personal accountability. So I want to take a second and go back to Cy Wakeman for a minute. I know I'm bouncing around. So I've got these two books.
It's okay to bounce around.
I'm bouncing around. Here we go. All right. So I want to read you a little bit of right out of Cy's book. This is the reality-based leadership book I was telling you about. And what she says here on this personal accountability. And I'm spending a little bit of time on this because it truly is so important as we define culture, and it permeates every bit of a healthy culture, I believe. So she said, there's a competency that we've disregarded in the workplace for some time, and that is personal accountability. Personal accountability has great benefits for organizations, but it has an equal, if not greater, impact on the individual who practices it. Pay attention, because I'm about to give you one of the best reasons of all to work on this. Those who study positive psychology used to think that happy people were ones who were not under any kind of stress. They have since discovered that happiness is not correlated with a lack of stress or a perfect environment. If it were, how many people could really describe themselves as happy? It is correlated to the amount of accountability you accept in your life. That's right. The more responsibility you take for your results, the happier you'll be, which is really great news, because seizing responsibility is a choice. to find peace and be happy and productive no matter what your circumstances. It has to come from inside. No one can give it to you, but no one can take it from you either. So I think really what it comes down to is when we exercise and step out in courage to help our team members and our employees with accountability, we are really helping them grow and move forward in the happiness space, you know. And I think that's beautiful, but those beautiful places don't come easy.
No.
Yeah.
It's work.
Yeah.
But it's worth it. It really is.
All right. Okay. Couple more things that a culture is not. Culture is not a standard mission statement, right? And it's not what I call an unimplemented set of core values. You know, where, you know, you go to a seminar and you come up with, oh, here's our whys, and oh, they sound really great, and let's print them up and put them on the wall. Or
our mission, our vision. Our
right.
goals.
Now, I'm not saying you don't do that, because we do that.
100%.
You know, we do it in some uncharacteristic, you know, uncommon ways. But that's why I say unimplemented lists of core values. Those aren't culture. We've worked really, really hard in the last few years on this. And so we'll share a little bit about how we implement core values. And they are a piece of our culture, but they really reflect the culture that we desire. And so core values, you don't even find them on the walls in our office, but you do find them on the discussion table every single week at our all staff meetings.
Every Monday.
Every Monday, we're training on those core values and the culture that we want. Okay, so let's move on to what culture is. All right, the best definition I've seen on this, and again, we're going to post this in the show notes. I'm going back to Keith Cunningham for a minute. Okay, so another little quick reading, and this is the last of the readings, but I don't want you to miss this. Okay, so here's his book. Oh, I love this book. It's a good book. And he's a down-to-earth Texan, and he says it like it is, which is, you know, he's a man after my own heart. Okay, so this is how Keith Cunningham defines culture. He says, culture is how we treat each other. It's how we talk to each other, whether or not we trust each other, and how we handle conflict. Right? That thing we were just talking about with the courage. Culture is about accountability, measuring, a bias for urgency, a focus on solutions, calling it right, saying what needs to be said, being kind and generous, acknowledging one another, and expressing appreciation. In case you doubt what I'm saying, just take a look at the U.S. Navy SEALs. They have one of the greatest cultures of all time. And it's not because they get to bring their dog to work or have a nap room. I just laugh at them. They get stuff done. They hold each other accountable and work in unison for a common objective. And they're proud of the big R word, results. All right. I couldn't agree with Keith Cunningham more. I think he absolutely hit it on the head. And in fact, you know, sneak peek, this is a preview. So when we end the show, I'm going to give you some implementation, a little homework to do to get yourself really thinking about culture. I'll tell you, here's what our culture is. And ours isn't perfect, right? And I'm just going to give you a few attributes, but these are some of the things that we work hard for, and it's really producing some phenomenal results. So our culture in our law practice it's a team of peak performers that values results, not efforts. What do you think about that, Jose? Can you think of other places where results weren't really required?
I think results are always required, but what happens, and we go back to what are we tolerating? So as leaders, if you're tolerating, you know, not having results, it's going to feed back into that as well. Right.
I mean, then it's not really required. That's what I would
argue. That's right.
But I mean, it is what it is. I'm just going to say it is what it is. I think what we've seen over the last 10 years, especially, I would say, are employees who expect to get brownie points for showing up to work on time. Right? Or showing up to work on time for 5 days in a row. Or I worked really, really hard and extra long hours, but they still didn't follow directions. They left their training aside and they didn't get a result.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But that's what I mean. It's interesting. And I know it's not maybe nice sounding to say, but it's the reality. We're here to produce results. And if you look at any group of true peak performers, why are they peak performers? Because they get freaking results, right?
That's exactly it.
Right? I mean, I could have 10 attorneys work on somebody's, high asset divorce case for 30 years and make a lot of money for the firm, but never get the results the client's after and never get it to a conclusion and all of those things. And I consider that a failure. All right. So anyway, so we value results, not whining about how hard I tried, or look at me, I showed up to work on time, or even 5 minutes early, right? So that's people who have that mindset aren't really a part of the culture that we're building. Our culture is also a drama-free culture. Okay.
That's right.
You want to talk for a minute about when we say a drama-free culture? Now, I just have to laugh at this one, right? Because one of our main practice areas is family law. I don't think we could come up with a more drama-oriented area of law.
I don't think anybody can.
Right? But can you talk for a minute about emotional expensiveness is really what we're talking about? What that is?
Well, when you talk about drama, it's something that I actually talk about quite a bit in our recruiting process when we're hiring people. And I think that's something that would interest, you out there, business owners, etc., or even if you're responsible for hiring people at your company. And when I talk about that we are a drama-free company, we have a no drama policy.
Mm-hmm. We really do have a no drama written policy.
It piques interest, and what that means, and they, I really like that, but I get that question, or I should say that response from people interviewing. And what they say is, I really like the way that sounds. It's like, well, do you really know what that means? Yeah. And so I outline it for them. I say, look, it means, and I'll share this with you, the book from Cy Wakeman and talking about emotional expensiveness is exactly that. It's people that are really, I guess the best way to, the easiest way and the simplest way for you to understand without reading the book, so I hope you read the book, is to look at it as you have some people that, for example, are expecting good feedback, and they expect it every day, okay? And they expect it because they're doing their job. Then you have another group of people that really don't expect to be told, great job and all that, but they keep working. They're not expecting it, but they would like it. Now, that's one aspect of it, but also you look at certain people, and all of you know those people that like to take time to talk about a lot of things at work, right? And they're personal in nature. That's okay. It's fine to do that. But those people that just spend, an hour, 2 hours talking about, this is what's happening to me, and this is, oh my God, and this is, those people. Okay, right. Now what about the other people that don't bring that drama? And I understand you want to share it with your friends at work and all that. But that's what emotional expensiveness means, is you have some people that are emotionally expensive and some that are not. And what you need to realize is that as a company looking at their team members, the reality is that that's a factor that your boss, or if you should be looking at from your team, and using that to help them in their training, in everything that they do from a standpoint of what they're doing in their day-to-day work. Right. I think that's the best way for me to put it.
Yeah.
And especially when you look at it from a recruiting standpoint, it's like, if you start from the beginning with that.
Well, we warn you.
It sets the stage. But
think about it this way. How does that show up? So, let me back up. The reason we use this phrase emotional expensiveness is because there's been many studies. I believe it was Harvard Business Review did the in-depth study on this, and it was on the cost of drama in the workplace. So the cost of employee infighting. So maybe you've got some cliques, they're not working as a team, and one department's griping about another department, and they're not working together and rowing in the same direction, and when you've got some of that going internally, the cost to the company and the time lost and the cost of dealing with, lack of productivity, and then management having to intervene and sit people down. And I mean, if you think of how many hours are spent, it is astronomical, the amount of the expense to corporate America on drama versus dealing with facts, what reality is, without our it's not that we're robots and we don't feel, but it's about not letting our ego getting ahead of us, and deciding that we're gonna what I call engaging in mind reading, ascribing motives to others or even your clients. It's about, okay, well, what do we know for sure? What are the facts? And this is a lot of what Cy Wakeman talks about in her great writings, reality-based leadership. Reality meaning, what are the facts? Let's not guess. What do we know for sure? And then what is the problem we're trying to solve? And then how can we help each other solve it? That's it. I don't care about your feelings getting hurt. I don't care about you're not bought into this new initiative. Whatever it is, that is when ego shows up. And it starts to cause drama. We've had plenty of that over the years. And like I told you, we've had those times where we didn't realize, it was the learning curve. I'll tell you, I had a paralegal years ago who was just really a lovely personality, but we hadn't dialed in this no drama policy. And I remember, I think it was like within the first 2 weeks or so that she was working for us, she came into my office and she said, I got to tell you something because I really care about you. And I thought that was kind of odd, right? Right. Okay. And she said, you're about to lose your entire company because they think financially you're going under.
Oh my God.
Well, I went, what? I'm not going to tell you the real unvarnished words that came to my mind.
It's a great tip to get, though.
Yeah,
nice tip. Thanks.
Yeah, I've been in business for 30 years, but tell me, I've got an entire group of people about to walk out on me, and it was all because I remember it was like we're conscientious about how we spend our resources, and I don't remember, it was something about, stop buying this, buy this instead. I don't know. It was you could have just blown me off my chair with the feather. What are you talking about? Well, long story short, it turned out this employee was really in a very ingrained habit of living in a drama life, right? And it's stirring people up. And in the long run, we had to let her go because it was just the amount of time we spent unwinding all of these.
It was a new thing every week.
It was a new thing. It was a new drama every week. I'm like, I never had so much turmoil in my business till the drama queen came on site. So anyway, it is very expensive. So a no drama culture is super important to us. We don't want to hear, we think it's kind of disloyal to be talking smack about our clients. It's different to be trying to solve a problem. If a client is behaving in a way that is preventing us from delivering premium legal services to them in the law firm, then that's what it's limited to. Not, oh my goodness, did you see how they talked to, their daughter the other day, or they didn't show up for their appointment. It's not the big drama piece. It's back to what do we know for sure? They missed an appointment, or they're not responding and giving us the information that's needed to move the case to the next level, and how do we solve it? So that's the kind of thing. It's really important to us that we've got people who get on board with producing results, and they're also on board with change and vision.
Yeah.
So it's not, it's not like we're dictatorial, but it's not, I'm only going to work to get the result if I agree with the initiative. That's a drama. That's a drama mama. We are an environment where we reward personal accountability while demanding action. And I would also say our culture is one that's a growth environment where everybody's expected to, at home and at work, be interested in getting better and better and better. That shows up in our core values. And what about this one, the celebration environment?
Well, a lot of companies don't take time to celebrate the wins that you have. And not just as a company, individually, each team member, what were your wins this week? What did you do?
Yeah.
And that's something that, unfortunately, a lot of companies don't really spend time on.
Yeah, celebrating the wins. So inherent in all of that is, of course, treating one another with respect, with kindness, getting our egos out of the way. So these are some of the things that are really important to us, and it's paid off over time. I will tell you that I think I got one of the best compliments. You told it to me not too long ago. It was probably a couple. Do you know what I'm going to say about?
I have no idea.
Okay,
go ahead.
Okay. So, and it goes back to the culture, and again, we're not perfect, but it's really, we've worked really hard, and God's been very gracious and kind to us, I think, as we've worked hard to do the right thing and treat people kindly and lovingly, both in the business and in our outward facing. So I had a couple of new admins who had done a project, and there were some bumps in it, and there was just, they needed some direction, and they got some feedback from me, two ladies, and they came into my office, and we had something where they had put together some notebooks for the executives, and the notebooks were kind of a mess. There was not proofreading going on and that sort of thing. And so we had a little bit of a hiccup when we were at an event and looking at these notebooks. So I'm talking to the ladies about this, and, about how it's important to, let me give you some feedback, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, had this meeting, and it was all good. Jose comes in, and these are some people that are under his leadership in his department. And he has the feedback. What did they say to you? That was they told you that they went in to chat with me, right? About that.
Oh, yes. What did they say?
It was something like,
go ahead.
That was the nicest dressing down we've ever received.
Yep. That's a good way to put it, though. You gotta admit, that was pretty funny.
I'm like, well, was I too soft? But here's the thing, so holding somebody accountable, giving them the feedback, these ladies wanted to do a really good job. They wanted to really produce great results. And I'll tell you, they really took that to heart, and it didn't need to be ornery or any of those things.
Well, it never has to be any of those things. It just doesn't. And, you just have to let your ego not get in the way when you're giving feedback.
Yeah.
And, when I give feedback, and that's a perfect way to put it, is that it's a nice dressing down. But what they really meant, and if you can read between the lines, is you probably didn't have that same experience in with previous employers, because most people get corrected a different way, and not in from a training aspect or from a productive way, and that's really where it has to come from.
Well, and I think, look, most people, or a lot of people, get feedback, and
right.
A lot of us are afraid, that sometimes it can have a negative connotation because it comes in anger,
right,
or high frustration, right? And so, let's get real. It wasn't happy. I'm just going to be honest. It wasn't happy when we're in the middle of the thing we were doing, and we open up and our materials were a mess. Or I'll tell you, as a lawyer over the years, I've had it where someone didn't prepare the hearing file properly, and
that's a little more critical.
We get into, and I'm standing in open court, and I'm looking at the file, and the critical whatever wasn't put in there, and I'm standing in front of a judge having to say, I can't answer you, Your Honor, because I'm not finding it in my file. Those, for me, they'll, in the moment, there's frustration. Sometimes I'm really ticked off, right? But stopping and hitting that pause button before the time for feedback. I've learned that over the years. Man, if I go in, and that's my ego too. If I go in and say, how dare you? How could you? You didn't listen to the right. I mean, bleh, all of that. All they're hearing is, bleh, right? Not, okay, here's how we get better. And no coddling. You can be nice, not coddle. But I think that's really what that was a result of is learning over the years to not, because I've been have you ever been on the other end of that? Where you had somebody,
Sure.
It didn't matter what happened or whose fault it was.
Mm-hmm.
All I remember is the yelling, screaming, or I've observed other attorneys as I was coming up in the law in other firms throw files across the office. I mean,
I don't know if I've ever had to
it
deal with
happens.
something.
It's ridiculous.
Oh, that's crazy.
But then the growth moment is gone.
That's right. Right. You missed out on that.
Culture eats strategy for lunch. Okay. So I think as we come to the end of this, remember I told you I was going to give you some next steps. So we believe in implementation. If you just listen to this one time and never put a piece of it into play, well, it's just kind of a waste of time, I think. So here's your homework. So we're going to put the quote from Keith Cunningham in our show notes, and I want you to go over that quote on his definition, his beautiful definition on what culture is. And look at his definition and answer the question, what does your culture in your business look like today, as it is at this moment in time? And write it down. Truly, get really just brutally honest. Just put the facts down. What does it look like? How are you treating each other? All of those things. How is conflict being handled?
Mm-hmm.
How is accountability being handled? What are you tolerating? What is being tolerated? So write that down. And then go back and look at Keith's quote again and his definition of culture and answer the questions and define what you want it to look like. What you want it to, and while you're at it, just take and define where are you on a scale of 1 to 10 on adding value to your clients and your customers.
Mm-hmm.
Are you at a 10? Massive value? Are you at a 2? Barely? Are you making the bare minimum? That would, I think, be a 5. What do you think?
Absolutely.
5?
5.
Okay,
Probably
5.
The bare minimums would be in the middle.
Okay, 5. Right? And so ask the question, go back through his definition. What do you want it to look like? So here's some questions to answer. Turn his statements into questions. How will we treat each other? How will we handle conflict? And what do you need to get courageous about? What are those areas that you've been tolerating that you need to get some courage on? Look at what you're tolerating. And then what I want you to do is decide on 1 to 2 things that need to go. 1 to 2 things you're tolerating that absolutely need to go right away in favor of developing that quality culture that you deserve in your business. So once you define and identify those 1 to 2 things that they got to go, and you got to find the courage, okay? What specifically are you going to do today to get courageous to enforce the rules of the game? Because that's what culture is. It's all about the rules of the game. What are the rules of the game in your business? What should they be? And how are you going to get courageous enough? Maybe that's bringing in a friend. I got a Jose in my corner. So I can go into Jose and go, oh, I'm having a hard time with this. And he's going to go, you need to get in there and talk to that person or whatever it is, right?
Whatever.
Right. But maybe it's a trusted colleague that'll come alongside and help you with the courage. You have any other advice on, other tactics for couraging up?
Boy, sometimes when you're a manager or if you run your own gig, your own business, sometimes you think you don't have anyone. And that could be if you run your own business and it's your significant other, spouse, whatever. That counts too, Don't think that it has to be someone at home, or I should say at work, at the office, at the company. But lean on. I would say also leaning on your people, but the right people is a big part of that as well. I think if you can do that successfully, you're going to find that you're going to have two wins out of that. You're going to get some honest feedback from certain people. Hopefully, they can muster up the courage to tell you straight up that I disagree with you. I think we should do this. But the other thing is that you're going to have those people feel like they're, a part of a solution too. So that's a residual outcome of that.
That's true. Yeah, it's leveraging that wise inner circle that hopefully you're building. I think the last thing I would say is, and when you muster up the courage to go in and address those things that you've been tolerating, go in with love, absent of anger or frustration or fear, and just trust that when you lead in love with the people that you are working with, you're going to, more likely than not, you can't control their response, but more likely than not, you're going to come out with a positive result. And something I've been learning a lot lately is asking myself before I go in to talk to somebody about a hard conversation, what do I want to write on their hearts in this moment? What do I want to write on their heart? And most of the time the answer is how valuable they are, how we're their biggest cheerleader, we're rooting for their growth, and we love them. And that's why we're taking the time to have these hard conversations. So, all right, well, that's one down on culture. And now that we've talked about culture, I think you're going to see how and why that is our biggest foundational piece. And it flows right into our next episode that's coming up, and it's on training. So that's part 2 in the business triad. Trinity, not triad. The business Trinity. So we've got culture, and now we're going to go into training, and culture will inform your training, and training also becomes a part of culture, and we'll show you how and why in the next episode.
And we'll put everything in the show notes, including all the books that we mentioned today. You would have seen them, obviously. We put them up on the screen, but don't worry, we're going to put that in the show notes. So you could read that below, and easy, you'll be able to get links to those. You can get them obviously on Amazon as well, so we'll be sure to include those as well. And be sure to visit not only our Instagram account, which is Kelly Bennett Esquire, and we'll put that there as well, but we're also on Facebook, and feel free to answer those questions in Facebook and on Instagram. Comment on those.
I would love to see that.
And we'd like to share those. We'll probably even share those on the next episode, and we'll look forward to reading those answers to the questions.
Yep, that's perfect. So, hey, thanks for joining us. It is our pleasure and privilege to serve you. And remember, until next time, live with gusto and ignite your empire.